Lisa Carter stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council station and felt angry. The massive room stretched out before her with seats for hundreds of alien species. Each seat held a being that looked down at her with fear or hate or both. She had been Earth's voice in this place for 3 years, and she was tired of the same old complaints. The crystal being called Veltar rose from his chair at the front of the room. His body caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls as he moved. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass, but the words came through her translator clearly enough. "The human species has once again broken our laws," Veltar said. His words echoed in the huge space. "They have built 12 new warships without asking for permission. They have given weapons to the Deltari people even though we told them not. 2. They refuse to share their medical research with the Council. Most serious of all, they have taught 3 primitive species how to build faster than light drives." Lisa kept her face calm, but inside she wanted to scream. Every charge was true, but none of them were crimes. Humans built ships to protect their colonies from pirates. They gave weapons to peaceful species who were being attacked. They shared medical knowledge freely with anyone who asked, but they would not give it to the Council to control. As for teaching other species about space travel, that was not illegal either. "The Council has been patient with humanity," continued a slug-like being from the moisture worlds. "But this cannot go on. Earth must learn to follow the rules like everyone else." A bird creature with 4 wings spoke next. "Humans think they are special, but they are young and dangerous. They do not understand how the galaxy works." One by one, the speakers stood up and said the same things. Humans were too aggressive. Humans grew too fast. Humans did not respect the old ways. Humans scared the other species because they changed things. Lisa had heard it all before. The truth was simple. The other species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years without much change. They liked things slow and predictable. Then humans showed up 50 years ago and everything started moving faster. Human ships were better. Human weapons were stronger. Human medicine saved lives that would have been lost. Human technology made life easier for everyone. But the old species did not want competition. They wanted humans to be weak and grateful. They wanted Earth to beg for permission before doing anything. They wanted to control human knowledge and use it for themselves while keeping humans from getting too powerful. The worst part was that many species secretly used human help. They bought human goods. They hired human doctors. They begged for human protection when pirates attacked their worlds. But in public, they always voted against Earth in the Council. Veltar spoke again, and his crystal body seemed to grow larger. "The Council has made a decision. Earth will accept full oversight of all human activities. Earth will reduce its military by half. Earth will give all research to Council scientists to study. Earth will stop teaching primitive species without permission. If humanity refuses these terms, then Earth will face sanctions." The room went quiet. Lisa looked around at hundreds of alien faces and saw fear in most of them. They were afraid of what humans might become. They were afraid that humans would grow too strong to control. But they were also afraid of what would happen if humans left. Lisa had been expecting this day for months. The Council demands had been getting stronger. The votes against human activities had been getting larger. Earth had tried to work with the aliens, but there was no making them happy. They wanted humans to be powerful enough to help them, but weak enough to control. It was impossible. She reached into her jacket and pulled out the small golden pin that marked her as Earth's ambassador. The pin was shaped like Earth itself, with its blue oceans and green continents. She had worn it proudly for 3 years. Now she placed it carefully on the speaking platform in front of her. "The United Earth government has heard your demands," Lisa said. Her voice carried clearly through the great hall. "We reject them completely." The room exploded with noise. Aliens jumped to their feet and shouted in dozens of languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded scared. A few sounded relieved. Lisa waited for the noise to die down, then continued. "Earth is leaving the Galactic Council. We are going home. You have spent 50 years trying to make us weak and grateful. You have voted against us when we helped others. You have demanded our knowledge while giving nothing back. You have treated us like children who need to be controlled. She picked up her communication device and spoke into it. This is Ambassador Carter. Send the message. All human ships and stations are ordered to return to Earth space immediately. The withdrawal begins now. Valtares' voice cut through the chaos. You cannot do this. Earth has responsibilities to the galaxy. Lisa looked at the crystal being and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. We had responsibilities to people who treated us as equals. You never did that. You wanted our help, but not our friendship. You wanted our strength, but not our independence. Well, now you can see how well the galaxy works without us. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the shouting grew louder. Some voices called for her to come back. Others demanded that Earth be punished. A few begged for negotiation. Lisa did not look back. Earth was done being the galaxy's unwanted helper. It was time to find out what humanity could accomplish on its own. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the screens in Earth Command and felt proud of his species. The largest movement of people and ships in galactic history was happening right in front of his eyes. Every human colony ship and military vessel was coming home. Every research station and trade post was being packed up. Every human citizen living in alien space was getting ready to leave. The numbers were huge. 2 million humans lived outside Earth's solar system. They worked as doctors and teachers and engineers on 1,000 different worlds. They ran trading posts that connected distant civilizations. They operated research stations that studied everything from alien diseases to new types of stars. Now all of them had to come home. Sir, we have another request for transport, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. The Deltari colony on Zarian wants to know if they can come with us. Jake was not surprised. The Deltari were a peaceful species that humans had helped many times. When pirates attacked their worlds, human ships came to help. When a plague hit their colonies, human doctors found the cure. When they needed new technology, humans shared what they could. The Deltari knew that without human protection, they would not survive long. Tell them we can take 50,000 on the colony ships heading back from the Outer Ring, Jake said. But they have to decide fast. We leave in 6 days. The same scene was happening all over human space. Alien friends and allies were begging to come to Earth. Some had worked with humans for decades. Others had fought beside human soldiers. Many were scientists who had learned from human teachers. They all knew that life would be harder without human help. Captain Roy Campbell was loading the last of the research equipment from New Singapore Station. The station had been humanity's biggest trading post outside the solar system. Ships from hundreds of species came there to buy human goods and sell their own products. The station employed 30,000 humans and twice as many aliens. Captain, the Vorthan trade representative wants to meet with you, said his communications officer. Roy knew what the Vorthan wanted. His people had made billions of credits trading through New Singapore. Without the station, their economy would crash. But Roy's orders were clear. Everything human was coming home. The Vorthan was a tall, thin being with gray skin and 4 arms. He had traded with Roy for 5 years and they had become friends. Now he looked desperate. Roy, you cannot leave, the Vorthan said. My people depend on this trade. Without New Singapore, our colony worlds will starve. Roy felt bad for his friend, but orders were orders. I'm sorry, but Earth has made its choice. We're going home. You can keep the station if you want, but all the human equipment comes with us. The Vorthan's 4 hands shook. But the power systems are human-made. The docking computers use human software. The defense weapons are all human design. We do not know how to run any of it. That was the problem. Humans had built so much of the galaxy's infrastructure that removing it all would cause massive problems. But Earth's leaders had decided that was not their concern anymore. If the aliens wanted to treat humans badly, then they could learn to live without human help. Dr. Paul Bennett was destroying 40 years of research rather than leave it behind. His laboratory on Kepler Station had developed new medicines that could cure diseases that killed millions of aliens every year. He had also created new farming techniques that could grow food on dead worlds. The knowledge could save entire species from extinction, but Paul would rather see it burned than stolen. The council had voted to take all human research for themselves. They wanted to control who got human medicine and who didn't. They wanted to decide which worlds got human farming help. Paul would not let that happen. His assistant, Dr. Helen Parker, helped him delete files from the computers. "Are you sure about this, sir?" she asked. "These medicines could save so many lives." Paul's face was hard. "The council made their choice, Helen. They want our knowledge, but they don't want us to have any say in how it's used. They want to take our discoveries and claim credit for them. Well, they can't have what doesn't exist." The destruction was happening everywhere. Human engineers deleted the plans for faster-than-light engines. Human farmers destroyed the seeds for crops that could grow anywhere. Human doctors erased the formulas for medicines that could extend life by decades. If the galaxy wanted to treat humans as enemies, then the galaxy could solve its own problems. Some humans felt bad about leaving their alien friends behind. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was saying goodbye to the crew of aliens who had served with her. For 10 years, many of them were crying. They knew their worlds would be less safe without human protection. "We will miss you, Captain," said her Zephyrian first officer. His blue fur was wet with tears. "Who will protect us from the pirates now?" Lisa wished she could take them all to Earth, but there was not enough room. "You'll have to protect yourselves. You're stronger than you think. We taught you everything we could." But both of them knew it would not be enough. Zephyrians were peaceful people who hated violence. Without human ships to guard their trade routes, the pirates would come back. Without human soldiers to help train their forces, they would be helpless. The withdrawal took 6 months to complete. The last human ship left alien space on a cold Tuesday morning. Behind them, they left empty stations and abandoned colonies. They left alien friends who begged them to stay. They left technologies that had made life better for billions of beings, but they also left something else. They left a galaxy that would finally learn what life was like without humanity. The aliens had spent 50 years complaining about human interference. Now they would discover what happened when humans stopped interfering. Admiral Morrison watched the final ship dock at Luna Station and smiled. Every human was home safe. Every piece of human technology was secure. The galaxy had wanted humanity gone, and now they had their wish, but Morrison suspected they would regret getting what they asked for. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place, and there would be no humans coming to help when things went wrong. The Great Withdrawal was complete. Now Earth would see if the galaxy could survive without them. Senator Margaret White sat in her office in New Geneva and watched the galaxy fall apart. 6 months had passed since the human withdrawal, and the reports coming in got worse every day. The news feeds showed chaos spreading across dozens of star systems. Pirates attacked merchant ships that no longer had human escorts. Diseases that human doctors had controlled were killing millions. Colonies that depended on human technology were going dark one by one. The worst part was listening to the messages. Every day, Earth received hundreds of communications from alien governments begging for help. Some offered money, others promised trade deals. A few even offered formal apologies for voting against humanity in the Council. But Earth's response was always the same: silence. "Ma'am, we have another message from the Deltari Prime Minister," said her assistant. "He says the plague has reached their homeworld. They need human medical teams urgently." Margaret felt sick. She had worked with the Deltari for years and considered many of them friends. The Zephyrian plague was something human doctors had contained easily. Without them, it spread like wildfire through populations that had no immunity. Entire planets were dying. "File it with the others," Margaret said sadly. "We don't respond to requests for aid." The orders came directly from Earth's president. No human ship would leave the solar system. No human doctor would treat alien patients. No human engineer would fix alien technology. Earth had tried to help the galaxy and been punished for it. Now the galaxy could learn to help itself. Commander. Kevin Hayes commanded the border patrol ships that watched the edge of human space. His job was to make sure no alien vessel got close to Earth without permission. Every day his sensors picked up ships trying to approach. Most turned back when warned. A few had to be escorted away by force. "Sir, we have a Vorthan diplomatic ship requesting permission to enter the system," reported his communications officer. "They say they have an urgent message from their government." Kevin checked his orders again. They were very clear. Denied? Tell them to transmit their message and leave. The Vorthan ship broadcast a recording of their leader begging Earth to reconsider. Their economy had collapsed without human trade. Their colonies were running out of food because human farming technology had failed. Their military could not protect them from raiders because human weapon systems had shut down. Kevin listened to the message and felt nothing. The Vorthans had voted in favor of sanctions against Earth. They had demanded that humans share all their technology while giving nothing back. They had called humans dangerous and aggressive. Now they wanted human help to survive. It was too late for that. The same pattern repeated across the galaxy. The proud hegemony found their expansion blocked by technical failures. The crystal beings discovered that their cities could not function without human power systems. The flying species learned that their atmospheric processors only worked with human maintenance. President Janet Foster read the intelligence reports in her office beneath the Rocky Mountains. Earth spy networks were still active, and the information they gathered painted a clear picture. Galactic civilization was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. "The Outer Rim has lost contact with the core worlds," reported intelligence. Director Roy Brooks. "Pirates control most of the major trade routes. 3 species have declared war on each other over access to medical supplies. The council hasn't met in 2 months because half the members can't travel safely to the station." Janet nodded grimly. She had hoped the aliens would find ways to adapt. Instead, they were fighting over the scraps of human technology that remained. None of them had bothered to learn how human systems worked. They had just used them and assumed humans would always be there to maintain them. "Any word from the Deltari?" she asked. Roy's face was sad. "We lost contact with their homeworld yesterday. The plague has a 90% mortality rate without human treatment. We estimate their population has dropped by half." Janet closed her eyes. The Deltari had been humanity's closest allies. They had never voted against Earth in the Council. They had shared their knowledge freely and asked for nothing in return. Now they were dying because of choices made by other species, but Earth could not help them without helping everyone. If human ships returned to save the Deltari, then every other species would demand the same assistance. Soon Earth would be back where it started, with the galaxy depending on human help while treating humans as servants. Dr. Helen Parker was working on something that would make the situation even worse. Hidden in human technology throughout the galaxy were shutdown codes that could be activated remotely. Every power plant that humans had built could be turned off. Every computer system that used human software could be disabled. Every weapon that fired human ammunition could be made useless. "The system is ready," Helen reported to the Defense Committee. "We can shut down any human technology in the galaxy with a single command." The implications were staggering. Humans had built the infrastructure for hundreds of worlds. They had designed the life support systems for space stations. They had created the defense networks that protected peaceful species. If all of it stopped working at once, the death toll would be unimaginable. "We're not using it unless we have to," Janet decided, "but it's good to know we have the option." Meanwhile, the aliens were learning hard lessons about independence. Species that had relied on human doctors were watching their people die from curable diseases. Worlds that had depended on human food technology were facing starvation. Governments that had counted on human protection were being conquered by aggressive neighbors. The crystal being Veltar, who had led the vote against humanity, was facing revolt on his homeworld. Without human energy systems, their cities were going dark. Without human medical knowledge, their people were dying from radiation poisoning. His government was demanding that he find a way to bring the humans back, but every message to Earth went unanswered. Every diplomatic approach was ignored. Humanity had vanished behind an impenetrable wall of silence and defense systems. The species that had once feared human aggression now feared human absence even more. Some aliens tried to reverse engineer human technology, but it was too advanced. Others attempted to rebuild their civilizations without human help but lacked the knowledge. A few groups tried to use force to make Earth respond, but human border defenses were stronger than anyone had imagined. The galaxy was learning what it meant to live without humanity. Trade had collapsed. Communication networks were failing. Peaceful species were being wiped out by aggressive ones. The careful balance that had maintained galactic civilization for thousands of years was broken. And Earth watched it all happen in complete silence. The Galactic Council station was dying. President Janet Foster watched the news feeds from her bunker office and saw the massive structure losing power section by section. The station had been the center of galactic government for 1,000 years, but it could not function without human technology. The life support systems were failing. The artificial gravity was breaking down. The communication networks that connected hundreds of worlds were going silent. Half the council members had already fled to their homeworlds. The others were trapped on the station as their ships broke down in the docking bays. Every major system had been built or improved by human engineers over the past 50 years. Now those same systems were failing one by one without human maintenance. The council has officially dissolved, reported Intelligence Director Roy Brooks. The remaining members issued a statement saying they cannot govern effectively without the infrastructure to communicate with their people. Janet felt no satisfaction from the news. She had not wanted to destroy galactic civilization. She had only wanted humanity to be treated with respect. But the aliens had made their choice, and now they were living with the consequences. The collapse was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The hegemony which had led the vote against humanity was facing civil war. Their crystal cities were going dark as human power systems failed. Their armies could not move because human transportation technology had shut down. Their people were rioting in the streets demanding that their leaders bring back the humans on the peaceful worlds. Things were even worse. The Deltari homeworld was silent. Every attempt to contact them failed. Satellite images showed their cities empty and their farms abandoned. The Zephyrian plague had killed 90% of their population in 6 months. An entire civilization was gone. The flying species of the wind worlds were grounded. Their atmospheric processors had stopped working without human maintenance. The air on their planets was becoming poisonous. Millions were fleeing to space stations, but those were failing too. Ships that had worked perfectly for decades were breaking down because their human-built engines could not be repaired. "Ma'am, we're getting reports of violence in the moisture systems," said Roy. 3 species are fighting over the last working water purification plant. It's human-built, and none of them know how to fix it when it breaks. Janet closed her eyes. The water purifiers were simple technology that humans had shared freely, but the aliens had never bothered to learn how they worked. They had just used them and assumed humans would always be there to maintain them. Now people were dying of thirst on worlds that had oceans of poisoned water. Dr. Helen Parker entered the room with her tablet full of technical reports. As Earth's chief scientist, she was tracking the failure of human technology across the galaxy. The results were worse than their worst predictions. "The cascade effect is accelerating," Helen said. "Every system that fails puts more stress on the remaining ones. We estimate total infrastructure collapse within 18 months. Janet studied the graphs on Helen's tablet. Power grids were failing. Communication networks were going down. Transportation systems were breaking apart. Food production was dropping. Medical facilities were closing. The very foundation of galactic civilization was crumbling. "How many worlds are we talking about?" Janet asked. Helen's voice was quiet. "Every world that accepted human help in the last 50 years. That's about 40% of inhabited planets in the galaxy." The number was staggering. Billions of lives were at risk. Entire species faced extinction. Peaceful civilizations that had never harmed anyone were paying the price for decisions made by their governments decades ago, but the aliens were not just victims. Many were adapting in dangerous ways. The hegemony had begun raiding other worlds for resources. Without human protection, the peaceful species could not defend themselves. Pirates and slavers were taking advantage of the chaos. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries were now battlegrounds. Commander Kevin Hayes reported increased activity along Earth's borders. Desperate alien fleets were probing human defenses looking for weak spots. Most were poorly organized refugee groups fleeing the collapse. But some were military expeditions sent by governments that blamed Earth for their problems. "Sir, we detected another probe near Pluto," reported his tactical officer. Hegemony design but no identification signals. Kevin was not surprised. The crystal beings were the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They had spent decades trying to expand their territory, but humans had always blocked them. Now they thought Earth was weak and isolated. They were wrong. "Lock weapons on the probe," Kevin ordered. "One warning shot, then destroy it." The probe tried to run when human ships approached, but it was too slow. One blast from a human weapon turned it into glowing fragments. The message was clear. Earth would defend itself against any threat. Meanwhile, the desperate messages kept coming. Alien leaders offered everything they had for human help. Some promised to make humans rulers of their worlds. Others offered to share their most secret technologies. A few even suggested making humans gods that their people would worship. President Foster read the messages and felt disgusted. These were the same beings who had called humans dangerous and primitive. They had voted to limit human power and control. Human technology. Now they were willing to surrender everything just to get human help back. "The Zephyrian resistance movement is asking for military aid," reported Secretary of State Amy Davis. "They say the hegemony has invaded 3 of their worlds and enslaved the survivors." Janet's heart ached for the blue-furred people. The Zephyrians had been good friends to humanity. They had shared their art and music freely. They had never voted against human interests. But helping them would mean getting involved in galactic affairs again. "We can't help them without helping everyone," Janet said sadly. "If we save the Zephyrians, then every other species will demand the same treatment. We'll be right back where we started." The hardest part was watching former allies suffer while knowing Earth could help them. Human medicine could cure the plagues that were spreading. Human technology could restore the failing infrastructure. Human weapons could protect the peaceful species from raiders, but Earth had learned a hard lesson. Being helpful was not enough if people did not respect you. Sharing your knowledge was worthless if others wanted to control how you used it. Protecting the weak meant nothing if they called you aggressive for having the strength to protect them. The galaxy was discovering what it meant to live without human interference. Wars that humans had prevented were starting. Diseases that humans had cured were spreading. Technologies that humans had maintained were failing. The careful balance that had kept peace for decades was broken. Some alien leaders finally understood what they had lost. The few honest politicians admitted that they had made a terrible mistake. They acknowledged that humans had been partners, not conquerors. They recognized that human strength had protected everyone, not just Earth, but it was too late for apologies. The damage was done. Galactic civilization was collapsing and Earth was not coming to help. The species that had wanted humans gone had gotten their wish. Now they would learn to live with the consequences of a galaxy without humanity. Admiral Krexler of the Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the tactical display showing the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 2,000 ships from 30 different species floated in formation around his massive dreadnought. They had come together for one purpose: to force Earth back into the galaxy. The crystal being's 4 arms moved over his command console as he reviewed the fleet composition. The Hegemony had contributed 800 ships, including their newest battlecruisers. The Vorthen Collective had sent 300 vessels despite their economic problems. Even the peaceful moisture worlds had provided ships. Every species that still had working vessels had joined the expedition. "Admiral, the final squadron has arrived," reported his tactical officer. "All ships are ready for the jump to Sol System." Krexler felt confident about the mission. Humans were strong, but they were only one species. The combined fleet represented the military might of dozens of civilizations. Earth would have to negotiate when faced with such overwhelming force. The humans would return to their proper place as servants of the galaxy. The truth was that most of the galaxy blamed Earth for the collapse. Worlds were dying because humans had withdrawn their support. Governments had fallen because human technology had failed. People were suffering because human doctors had gone home. In the minds of many aliens, Earth was responsible for fixing the problems they had created. Captain Roy Campbell watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of Earth defense ship Thunderbolt. His sensors showed an impressive array of alien warships, but he was not worried. The aliens had no idea what they were walking into. Earth's defenses had been upgraded significantly since the withdrawal. New technologies that humans had kept secret were finally being deployed. "Sir, the alien fleet will reach the outer sensor grid in 6 hours," reported his navigation officer. "Should we alert Earth Command?" Roy smiled. "Earth Command has been tracking them since they left Hegemony space. We're ready for them." The approaching aliens had no idea that human spy networks were still active throughout the galaxy. Earth knew about the fleet before it was even assembled. Every ship type and weapon system had been analyzed. Every captain's personal history had been studied. The humans knew exactly what they were facing. Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated Earth's response from the command bunker in Colorado. The alien fleet was impressive by galactic standards, but primitive compared to what humans had developed in isolation. 50 years of holding back their technology to avoid scaring the aliens was over. Earth was finally ready to show what human engineering could really accomplish. "Sir, the defense grid is online," reported Commander Lisa Davis. "All ships are in position." Jake studied the holographic display that showed Earth's defensive network. Orbital platforms armed with weapons that could crack planets. Ships that moved faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Energy shields that could absorb the combined firepower of the entire alien fleet. The aliens were about to learn why humans had been so restrained for so long. The first indication that something was wrong came when the alien fleet reached Neptune's orbit. Admiral Krexler watched his sensors as human ships seemed to appear from nowhere. They moved in ways that defied physics and carried weapons that his computers could not identify. What he had thought was a small patrol force was actually a full battle fleet. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," reported his science officer. "The humans have weapons platforms hidden in the asteroid belt and behind every major moon." Krexler felt his confidence slipping. The intelligence reports had said Earth's defenses were minimal. The humans had withdrawn from the galaxy and supposedly had only a few dozen ships. But his sensors were showing hundreds of vessels with capabilities far beyond anything in the galactic database. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "We proceed as planned," but the alien fleet was already in trouble. Human weapons reached out across impossible distances and began picking off ships with surgical precision. Energy beams that could penetrate any known shield. Missiles that moved faster than light and hit targets before sensors could detect them. Drones that swarmed like living creatures and tore ships apart from the inside. Captain Campbell's ship was part of the second wave that hit the alien fleet as it passed Mars. His weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, but the effect was devastating. Alien ships lost power and drifted helplessly. Their weapons stopped working. Their shields collapsed. In minutes, the mighty fleet was reduced to floating scrap metal. "Sir, the Hegemony flagship is requesting communication," reported his communications officer. Campbell opened the channel and Admiral Krexler's image appeared on his screen. The crystal being looked shocked and frightened. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was dark and filled with emergency lighting. What are you? Crexter asked. His voice shook with fear. Campbell kept his expression neutral. We're the humans you wanted to control. Did you really think we were giving you our best technology all these years? Every ship you bought from US was deliberately limited. Every weapon we shared was intentionally weakened. You've been playing with training wheels and calling yourselves warriors? The alien admiral's forearms trembled. This is impossible. Our intelligence said you only had a few dozen ships. Your intelligence was looking at our patrol vessels, Campbell replied. These are our real warships, the ones we built after. You forced us to leave the galaxy. We've had 5 years to develop without holding back. Did you think we were standing still? The battle was over in 6 hours. Not a single human ship was damaged. Half the alien fleet was destroyed, and the other half was disabled. Admiral Crexler found himself a prisoner aboard a human vessel that was more advanced than anything he had imagined possible. His mighty expedition had been crushed without effort, but the most shocking discovery came when the prisoners were processed. Human interrogators revealed that Earth had been deliberately limiting its technology for decades. Every innovation that humans had shared with the galaxy was a simplified version of what they really had. The aliens had been living with children's toys while thinking they understood human capabilities. Why? Asked the captured Vorthan captain. Why did you hold back? You could have conquered the galaxy decades ago. The human intelligence officer looked sad. Because we wanted to be friends, not conquerors. We thought if we showed too much power too fast, you would be afraid of us. So we gave you simple versions of our technology and pretended to be less advanced than we really were. We wanted you to accept us as equals. The Vorthan was silent for a long moment. We thought you were dangerous because you were so much stronger than us, but you were actually being gentle. Yes, the human replied. And you repaid our gentleness by trying to chain us down. You demanded our technology while calling us primitive. You wanted our help while treating us as servants, so we left. And now you see what we're really capable of when we stop holding back. News of the fleet's defeat spread quickly through what remained of galactic civilization. The aliens who had thought humans were weak and isolated learned the truth. Earth had not been weakened by isolation. It had been strengthened. Free from the need to appear non-threatening, humans had developed technologies that seemed like magic. The galaxy realized it had made a terrible mistake. They had not been protecting themselves from human aggression. They had been protected by human restraint. Now that restraint was gone and Earth was no longer interested in playing by galactic rules. The hunt to force Earth back into submission had failed completely. Instead, it had revealed that humans were far more powerful than anyone had imagined. The galaxy was not dealing with equals who could be bullied into compliance. They were dealing with a species that had been gentle by choice, not weakness, and that choice was over. 5 years had passed since the Great Withdrawal, and the galaxy was a very different place. Elena Ross stood in the reception hall of Earth's newest space station and watched the first alien diplomatic mission to visit Sol System since the humans left. The delegation looked nervous as they waited to meet with Earth's leaders. They had good reason to be afraid. The Galactic Council was gone. The great station that had been the center of government for 1,000 years was now a dead hulk drifting. In space, some species had survived the collapse and learned to stand on their own. Others had fallen completely and disappeared from history. The galaxy had been reshaped by humanity's absence. Elena had been Earth's youngest ambassador when the withdrawal happened. Now she was President Foster's special advisor on galactic affairs. She had spent 5 years studying how the galaxy had changed, and the results were sobering. Half the species that had voted against Earth were extinct. The other half had learned hard lessons about independence. Madam Ross, the delegation is ready to meet with you, said her assistant, Captain Ryan Brooks. They seem very eager to please. Elena nodded and walked into the meeting room. The 3 aliens who stood up to greet her represented what was left of galactic civilization. A Zephyrian with patchy blue fur, a Deltari who looked thin and sick, a crystal being from the hegemony whose body was cracked and dim. They were survivors of the collapse. Welcome to Luna Station, Elena said formally. Earth appreciates your visit, but we want to make something clear from the beginning. We are not interested in returning to the old ways. If you came here to ask us to rebuild what was lost, then this meeting is over. The Zephyrian spoke first. His name was Commander Blue Wind, and he had been a military officer before his civilization fell apart. We understand, Madam Ross, we are not here to ask for charity. We come as equals seeking partnership. Elena studied the three aliens carefully. The Zephyrians had been good friends to humanity before the collapse. They had never voted against Earth in the Council, but they had also never stood up for human rights when others attacked them. Now their homeworld was mostly empty and their people scattered across refugee camps. The Deltari representative was Dr. Greenleaf, who had worked with human scientists for decades. Her people had been humanity's closest allies, but they had still voted for the sanctions that forced Earth to leave. The plague had killed most of her species, but a few million had survived by hiding in deep bunkers. The hegemony delegate was most interesting. Sub-Admiral Bright Crystal was young for his species and belonged to a new generation that had risen after the old government fell. The crystal beings had been humanity's worst enemies, but the collapse had taught them hard lessons about cooperation. We know we made mistakes, Dr. Greenleaf said quietly. We let fear guide our decisions. We listened to voices that told us humans were dangerous. We voted for policies that hurt our friends. Many of our people died because of those choices. Elena felt sympathy for the Deltari, but she could not let emotion guide policy. Earth had tried being gentle and helpful and been punished for it. Any new relationships would be built on mutual respect, or they would not exist at all. The old galaxy is gone, Elena said. The council that tried to control Earth no longer exists. The species that voted for sanctions have learned to live without human help. Some of you adapted and grew stronger. Others did not survive. We did not want this outcome, but we will not apologize for defending ourselves. Sub-Admiral Bright Crystal spoke for the first time. His voice was different from other hegemony members Elena had met, less arrogant and more thoughtful. Our people were taught that strength came from controlling others. We believed that if we could chain down the humans, then we would be safe. We learned that true strength comes from cooperation between equals. Elena was surprised by the crystal being's words. The hegemony had been the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They had led the vote against Earth and sent the fleet that tried to force humanity back into compliance. But the defeat of that fleet had apparently changed how they thought about power. What exactly are you proposing? Elena asked. Commander Blue Wind pulled out a datapad and placed it on the table. A new agreement between our surviving civilizations. Not the old council with its rules and bureaucracy. Something smaller and more flexible. A partnership where each species contributes what they can and receives what they need. Elena studied the document. It was surprisingly reasonable. The proposal recognized Earth as an equal partner with full sovereignty over human space. It included protections against the kind of sanctions that had forced the withdrawal. Most importantly, it was voluntary. Any species could leave at any time. This looks interesting, Elena said carefully. But why should Earth trust you? Your people voted against us when we tried to help the galaxy. You sent fleets to attack us when we tried to leave. What has changed? Dr. Greenleaf answered first. We learned what the galaxy was like without human help. We discovered that humans were not the problem. You were the solution to problems we did not even know we had. Without your medicine, our people died. Without your protection, we were conquered. Without your technology, our worlds went dark. Sub-Admiral Bright Crystal nodded agreement. My species believed that humans were too dangerous to be free. We thought that if we could control you, then we would be safe from your power. But we learned that your power was never the threat. Your kindness was what protected us. When you stopped being kind, the galaxy became a much more dangerous place. Elena was quiet for a long moment. These words would have meant everything 5 years ago, but too much had happened since then. Too many species had died because their leaders made bad choices. Earth could not simply forget the betrayal and go back to being helpful. "I will take your proposal to President Foster," Elena said finally, "but I want you to understand something. Earth is not the same as it was before the withdrawal. We have grown stronger and more independent. We do not need the galaxy anymore. If we choose to work with you, it will be because we want to, not because we have to." The three aliens nodded understanding. They had seen what human ships could do when they stopped holding back. They had watched Earth's technology advance beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity was no longer the junior partner that needed galactic approval. Captain Brooks escorted the delegation to their quarters while Elena prepared her report for the president. Earth would probably accept the proposal, but with strict conditions. Human ships would protect their new allies, but only as long as those allies treated humans with respect. Human technology would be shared, but never again would Earth accept limits on how it was used. The galaxy was being reborn around a new understanding. Humans were not just another species that needed to be managed. They were the most advanced civilization in known space, and they would be treated accordingly. The age of trying to contain human power was over. The age of benefiting from human partnership was about to begin, but this time the partnership would be between equals. Earth would help its friends and defend its allies, but it would never again accept being treated as a servant. The galaxy had learned what life was like without humanity. Those species that survived would make sure they never had to learn that lesson again. Elena looked out the observation window at the blue and green world below. Earth had grown stronger during its isolation. Human cities now floated in the clouds above the surface. Human factories produced materials that seemed like magic. Human ships traveled between the stars in ways that broke the old rules of physics. The withdrawal had been painful but necessary. Earth had to leave the galaxy to discover its true potential. Now that potential would reshape galactic civilization on humanity's terms. The species that had tried to chain Earth down would learn to live as humanity's equals, or they would learn to live without humanity at all. The new galaxy was being born, and humans would help guide its growth. But never again would they accept being anything less than full partners in the civilization they had done so much to protect and improve.